morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along to the wilds of Suffolk. I'm out here yet again doing what I do, walking along in beautiful locations such as this and giving you my thoughts and opinions on everything that's happening in the world, in the public consciousness. If it's your first time here, welcome along. If this is what I do, I hope you enjoy it. If you're a returning subscriber, or 1,065 of you today there are, welcome back. I'm humbled by how many people join me for these walks, so thank you one and all for being here. It really is amazing. Can't believe it. So, today I'm going to be tackling a subject I've been talking about for quite some time. I've been down the rabbit hole in this one. Follow the white rabbit. I've been down the rabbit hole in this one, all sorts of directions. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to be talking about Antarctica. What's going on in Antarctica, okay? Now, I'm going to start out with the stuff that we all know, or that you can find out for yourself. And then we're going to go off into the really deep weeds, okay? So bear with me. Now, as I say in all of my talks, I don't expect you to believe a word that I say. I don't. Don't believe a word of it. You can challenge me, you can ask me questions, you can call me a liar, I don't mind. I really don't. You know, someone in my last video said that I was dead wrong. What was the words they used? I was devastatingly wrong or something incorrect, or something like that. Something like that. But look, I don't mind. You know, if you've got a differing opinion, great, okay. Offer up some evidence for it. Or, you know, maybe consider that what I'm saying is maybe got some truth to it and go and look into it yourself. I don't mind. Believe it, don't believe it, I don't care. It's up to you. You've got to decide what's truth in your world. Not me. Not anybody else for that matter, okay? So, whatever you see, read, hear, take it and decide what's true for you, okay? Including what I'm going to say today, because this is about to get really fucking crazy, right? So, bear that in mind. We're going to go through the normal stuff first, and then we're going to sort of gradually head off into some other parts of this that, well, they're pretty different. So let's see where it goes. All right, so Antarctica. Southernmost continent on the planet. If we're on a planet, in this reality, whatever. Southernmost continent, it is huge. It is the 5th largest continent in the world. The 5th largest. Okay, we'll go up this way today. We'll go into the trees because there's a bit of wind. 5th largest continent in the world. Twice the landmass size of Australia. It's pretty big, okay? There's a population of people that live there. It swells from about 1,000 to about 5,000 in the season when research can be done, whatever that research might be. And native species, there's things like penguins and what have you, things like that live there, but not a massive amount, because essentially it is for all intents and purposes, it's a desert. It's a polar desert. Meaning that there's only about 8 inches of precipitation falls a year. 8 inches. It's not much for what you'd think it is, but 8 inches of precipitation a year for the whole of Antarctica. Massive landmass, 8 inches. And now most of it falls near the coast. Okay? So, I've made some notes here. Made some notes, of course, because I don't want to come out and be told I'm not speaking truth. But it's the truth according to me. Okay? Ooh, hang on. Get caught up in the blackberry bushes out here in the forest. Okay, so twice the size of right. Now the ice that covers Antarctica it's a landmass, Antarctica, okay, but it's covered in ice 1.9 kilometers thick, or for those of you in America and different countries, 1.2 miles thick is the ice that covers Antarctica. Okay, this is all going to be relevant soon, so just okay. So Antarctica is governed by the Antarctica Treaty, okay? It's between 30 countries, and the Antarctic Treaty says that there's a set of rules at Antarctica. You're allowed things you're allowed to do and things you're not allowed to do in Antarctica. No weapons, no nuclear waste, anything like that, okay? I think there's also some fishing restrictions in around that area, but that's all part of the treaty. So, as part of the treaty, certain things are not allowed to be done in Antarctica. For instance, you're not allowed to fly over it. Not allowed to fly over the Antarctica, okay? That was done, by the way, before, which we're going to get to, but you can't do it anymore. You can fly to, but You're not allowed to fly over. So you don't have complete control of where you fly in Antarctica, okay? Because it's military controlled. Okay. Now, that's the stuff that's sort of the basics. You know, the stuff that you can find on Wikipedia and Googling and that kind of thing. You know, the information that's out there. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay. There's an island just off the coast of Antarctica called Rothschild Island. Okay, Rothschild Island. It was first spotted from a distance by French explorers during a French Antarctic mission in 1908 to 1910. Okay, and the gentleman who saw it from a distance was Rothschild, and he named it head of the Rothschild banking family from France. Okay, so he got to name that island. So Rothschild Island in Antarctica. Okay, there's also another island there called Deception Island. Okay, Deception Island. Now most of the Antarctic activity happens on McMurdoch Station, I think it's called, which is a permanent scientific base that's there in Antarctica. Now that's manned by scientists from all over the world doing different experiments, like ice core samples, for instance, which we spoke about before. There's a bunch of things going on in Antarctica. There's a bunch of equipment that gets sent to Antarctica every year that doesn't seem like it would have anything to do with ice and snow and those kind of scientific experiments. But go and have a look at the manifests and decide for yourself what you think is true there. Now, Deception Island, as I just mentioned, just off the coast of Antarctica, it's the Argentinians and Spanish have a research base set up there. You see, hear the wind. I do apologise if it's loud. I'm out the open part here. It's a bit windy in here. I'll try and get back in the trees so it's not quite so much. Deception Island is an island where they have a research station that's run by Argentina and France. Okay, that will make sense in a moment when I start to get on about the other information. So that's Deception Island just off the coast. Let's see what else we got here. Rothschild Island. Well, yep, okay. Now, the Antarctic Treaty, which I mentioned, okay, has been in place since 1959. 1959, signed by 30 countries. There's a whole pile of things that go along with it. One of those things is it's controlled by the military, and there's certain things you can't do. Okay, 59, the Antarctic Treaty was set up. 1959. Now, before that, right, get the order correct. Now, there are maps that are available that you can see, ancient maps that show the actual continent, maps that show the continent of Antarctica without the ice. And we're talking about from hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago, okay? Without the ice. Without the ice. Okay? So when we're talking about the last talk I spoke about, where I was talking about climate change, and we're told that their polar ice caps would melt and cover the earth with water. You remember? Someone questioned that, so what are you listening to? But that's what we're told, that the polar ice caps would melt and would be covered with water. Now, if there's maps from hundreds of years ago where Antarctica wasn't covered with ice, the world must have been underwater, right? 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 Wrong? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm no scientist, you know. Like that, the new Supreme Court justice has just been confirmed in the US. You know, I can't tell you what a woman is because I'm not a biologist. But I can't tell you why there's a map of Antarctica without the ice from hundreds of years ago and the rest of the world wasn't underwater. I can't tell you that because obviously I'm not an environmental scientist or a geologist or any other ist, unless you can add a ist onto the back of a chefist. No, I don't think that works, but you get my point. So there are ancient maps of Antarctica without the ice. Okay, consider that. Now, we're going to be going backwards and forwards in time like I always do. There's nothing sort of sequential in these talks, because as much as I take notes, I come out here without a real plan, with a vague idea of what I'm going to talk about, and whatever's rattling around in my brain. So whatever comes out of my mouth, I didn't organise it. Let's put it that way. I didn't write it down. I'm not reading from a script. I certainly haven't got a teleprompter. I'm just sort of trying to piece together all the bits of information I've ever seen about Antarctica and bring it forward in a talk that makes sense. Okay? Now, during the Second World War, okay, when the Nazis were famous for U-boats or submarines, there was huge battles going all over the place. But during the war, the Nazis were doing very peculiar things. Okay? They were going to places, and we've spoken about this before as well, they were gathering knowledge from all around the world to take back for the program that was, they had programs where they had, I can't remember the name of these women, there's a group of women that had very long hair. So if somebody knows what the name of the group was, please tell me, that were soothsayers, they saw premonitions, they were... I can't remember the name of this group. It really drives me bonkers. But anyway, these women were able to use their skills of being able to see things in the future and, you know, remote viewing, all these kind of things. And the Nazis were assisting, but they had lots of different programs that involved finding esoteric knowledge to find something out. Okay, the Nazis were looking for something, interdimensional doorways perhaps, or ancient knowledge that would help them not only win the war but to move forward. Okay, all right. So during the Second World War, the Nazis, in addition to everything else they were doing, gathering knowledge and ancient artifacts and knowledge from around the world, they were sending U-boats to Antarctica and to Argentina. Right, that'll become important in a minute. Stay with me. Okay, so I watched a documentary. There was actually two different pieces of information. There was a documentary, one was in Russian, which is probably not going to be popular nowadays because Russia. And disinformation, obviously, if it's a Russian documentary, it must be a lie because Russia does nothing but disinformation. Oh my God, it's so stupid. So I watched a Russian documentary about the Germans' activities, the Nazis' activities during World War II. And in this documentary, German soldiers, German U-boat soldiers, or Navy, whatever you call them, seamen, were given awards after the war because they managed to find what they said was a door through the ice. Okay, remember that. They managed to find a way through the ice. Okay, now what that means, we're going to come back to, but they managed to find a way through the ice. Now, there are other maps that show that the world, the reality that we live in, the world that we know as our world, is actually a small part of a much bigger map. Now, like I said, this is going to go off in the weeds, but I've seen maps that show our world that we recognise as a globe and as a world as part of a much bigger world, and our world or our reality that we inhabit is part of a much bigger world that we live in. Okay, that's beyond the ice wall. Okay, now this is, bear with me because it sounds crazy, but just bear with me. Okay, now we've spoken about flat earth before. Okay, now this whole flat earth theory it sounds preposterous, it sounds ridiculous. I understand, I get it, but like I said, we're going to examine all the possibilities here, and then you get to decide what's true and what's not. Okay, now the maps that I've seen of a much bigger world, maybe the world is round, maybe, who knows, but the maps I've seen are of concentric rings that go around the outside of the world, the reality that we inhabit as our world, a much bigger world. Okay, if I can find the map, I'll include it in the comment section if I can find it again. I've seen it many times, but I'll see if I can find it. Now, that through Antarctica is a doorway, a portal, or whatever to have access to the larger world. Now, during World War II, these Nazi seamen were awarded these special awards for finding the way through. Okay. Now, you can base whatever you think on that. Okay, that perhaps that things are not what we think they are. Okay, now I'm going to put a bit more meat on the bones here, so bear with me. Okay, now 1946, directly after the Second World War, there was a guy called Admiral Byrd, who was one of the most famous explorers in the world at the time, a Navy admiral who had both explored the North and South Pole. He was the admiral that was leading an exploration or an expedition to Antarctica just after the war, 1946, 28th of August I think it was, 1946, just after the war. It's called Operation Highjump. Okay, now Operation Highjump, they were flying planes, 1946, flying planes and surveying the whole of Antarctica and having a surveillance map, or a map to show Antarctica, and to what are they, cross coordinate or whatever it's called. So they were doing cross flights to map the whole of Antarctic continent. Okay, now he came back after he did his South Pole mission, and he also spoke about after Operation Highjump. Now, Operation Highjump was the largest non-wartime fleet ever assembled to go on a mission. Okay, now there was something like 5,000 men and battleships and all these kind of things that went to Antarctica as part of this fleet. Some of them did not return. Had nothing to do with the ice, had nothing to do with men dying on the ice or anything like that. Very, very strange set of circumstances that ships and men didn't return from that mission to Antarctica. Now, there's all sorts of stories that things came out of the water and blasted things, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but there's a possibility that perhaps strange things occurred in 1946 that made them leave. Now, Admiral Byrd is not some jackleg, not just some guy. He is the most celebrated explorer, one of the most celebrated explorers in the world. Okay? And you want to read what he wrote. Now, in his diaries, there's diaries that were published after his death by, I think, his son. There was an interview where he spoke about, he said, beyond the ice in Antarctica is a landmass the size of the United States with rich minerals and in a warm, temperate zone. Now, if we're discussing Antarctica, no one would describe Antarctica as warm and temperate, and certainly not the size of the United States beyond the ice. Okay? You with me? So he said, the vast landmass beyond, the warm temperate zone beyond the ice. Now, if the ice in Antarctica is 1.9 kilometers thick, 1.2 miles thick, where would you find a warm temperate zone in that? Now, when we speak about the Nazis and their exploration of Antarctica, there's many questions, and there's a program on the TV called Hunting Hitler, where they speak about the fact that they don't believe that Hitler died in a bunker in Germany during the Second World War. They think he escaped, right? And there's plenty of evidence for that. And one of the things that they speak about is Argentina. Okay, so Argentina, there's a massive German population that live in Argentina that speak German. Huge population of people that speak German because, as these people put it in this TV program, Hunting Hitler, they went there, and there's many of the German soldiers that came after the war that set up these communities in Argentina. Okay, now there's also reports that Hitler was in Argentina and that he died in Argentina long after the war. And as many of these people who are in Argentina are very staunch Nazi supporters. Okay, now you remember, if we speak about Deception Island, was run by Argentina in Antarctica. Now German U-boats were exploring Antarctica and found a way through. Now there is another theory, okay, and we're going to go, like I said, we're going to be all over the place today, but it is super weird. Everything that's going on in Antarctica is super, super weird. From Rothschild Island to nearly every politician, statesman, billionaire, millionaire, elite in the world has recently gone to Antarctica. And I'm talking recently in the last couple of years, last few years, 2 or 3 years. Okay, everyone, including David Schwartz from Ripple. Maybe they were just going there on a vacation to go and have a look around. Greg Secker, the guy you see advertising all over the place, Greg Secker, I think it is. You see advertising all over YouTube for his foreign currency exchange courses. He's just coming back from Antarctica, where everybody's going to Antarctica to go and see a bunch of ice, apparently. So, yes, where were we? So, there's another theory, the hollow earth theory. So you've heard the flat earth, possibly we're on a much larger planet, whatever, and our earth represents a small part of that larger concentric rings, okay? There's also another theory called the hollow earth theory. Now there's 2 crossovers here, and I'm going to mention both of them. So the hollow earth theory is that much like a toroidal energy field, where the magnetic shroud or energy field that surrounds our Earth comes out the north, goes in the south. You know, it's like a giant apple that sort of feeds through itself, in and out both sides. You know, that where the toroidal energy field comes from in the North Pole and goes to in the South Pole is actually an entrance into the hollow earth, right? And there are advanced civilizations that live inside the earth. I told you it was weird. Like I say, theory, I've looked into all of these kind of crazy things, and who am I to say? Who am I to say? But you know, one of the strange things about this whole Antarctic thing is it's illegal to fly over Antarctica. But why would it be illegal? Oh, because there's no radio frequencies there, or because we might harm the fragile eco-environment where hardly anything lives. You know, there's all sorts of excuses as to why people can't fly over there. But when you hear the stories of Admiral Byrd flying over and mapping Antarctica in 1946 and talking about a warm temperate zone beyond the ice, maybe there's a reason we can't fly over it. Who knows? And one of the other things that I find quite peculiar is that if you consider that the world is spinning around that way, okay, and we have the satellites that spin around with the world, the only satellites that go north-south, so eventually would go all the way around the world as the world's spinning, okay, are military satellites. That's what we're told, okay? So, I don't know what the truth is. I don't know what's true, what's not true. Now, when we're talking about Argentina and Antarctica, that there's an island just off the coast called Deception Island. I'm not joking, Deception Island. That Argentina runs a scientific study group on, and a huge amount of Nazi soldiers retired to Argentina after the war. There's a very strong possibility that there's a link between Argentina and Antarctica. Now, let's consider the possibility, crazy as it may be, let's consider the possibility that perhaps there was a large contingent of high-ranking Nazi soldiers who left Germany before the end of the war. Now, all the people that were hung and all those kind of people, they were not the high-ranking Third Reich officers. They were low level. They weren't the high-ranking people who were running, the whole operation. Hitler was supposed to have shot himself in a bunker, but it's very dubious. The whole thing is very, very dubious because the skull didn't match. The Hitler skull apparently didn't match, and the Russian soldiers who came and took away the body couldn't confirm. Well, they released the skull to be tested. It was actually a woman's skull, and the woman was supposed to be Hitler's girlfriend or Ava, I can't remember what her name was, but her family wouldn't allow any testing to be done on it, strangely. So the whole thing is very, very queer, very odd. But the links to the Nazis and Antarctica are massive, absolutely huge. And like I say, what I'm saying and what the reality is, you have to decide for yourself. But all that said, now there are some very strange things to do with Antarctica that happens nowhere else in the world. Okay, North Pole, you can do whatever you want. You want to go to the Arctic, you can go and do whatever you want. You can live there, blah blah blah. You can do whatever you want. Antarctica is not like that. Completely different kettle of fish. Now, let's just say, for instance, we're going to play hypotheticals here. Let's just say, for instance, right, that Antarctica is a place where you could escape from this world and move into the larger world or whatever is beyond it. Let's just say that it's hollow earth, or if it's flatter and it goes into larger concentric rings. Let's just hypothetically say that that's the truth for a moment, okay? Now, imagine if you were going to design something like a simulation or a reality that people lived in, and you didn't want them to escape. You didn't want them to find a way to escape. So what you do is you'd have all the escape routes that were virtually impossible for a human to overcome. Now, if we want to go into space, what happens? If we want to go upwards, what happens? You get to a point where it gets very, very cold and there's no air. You can't breathe. Higher you go, there's less air because of gravity, obviously. So the higher you go up to try and escape up that way, you run out of air and it gets very, very cold, you'll die. Okay? Now, imagine that. Let's imagine that the world is flat. Imagine, okay, let's not get too hyped up here and call me a flat earther or any of these stupid other names. Imagine that it's flat and that the North Pole is the center of this flat earth that we inhabit. Let's question that for a moment. Where would the Antarctic be? It would be the ring of ice around the outside, right? Yeah? Now, if you were going to try and escape that, we got a 300-foot wall of ice, freezing cold, it's not habitable. You're talking about the temperatures of minus 50 Celsius. The wind chill is ridiculous. Humans are not built to survive in that kind of environment. Ernest Shackleton, the things that those guys did there. I mean, the old explorers that went there and did what they did. I mean, incredible feats of ingenuity and just toughness. I think half the population of nowadays wouldn't be able to handle a winter's day here in the UK, let alone going to Antarctica. But it is so against human life that it makes kind of sense that you'd have barriers of exit, wouldn't you? Now, if there's any truth to the rumours that the Nazis did find a way through or out or whatever, is there a possibility that the UFOs, what do you want to call them, other beings from other places are not actually from outer space but from somewhere else, possibly another dimension or part of our bigger world? Who knows? Look, the thing I keep coming back to, and there are links between Antarctica, Tartaria, which we're going to be speaking about soon as well, and Antarctica, Tartaria, and Jesus, what's the other one? Atlantis. Now, is there any possibility that the world that we inhabit is Atlantis? We're going to be discussing that soon. Now, there's a bunch of unanswered questions here, but they'll be answered as we go forward into the next couple of talks. We're going to be talking about Atlantis, we're going to be talking about Tartaria, and they link to this subject of Antarctica as well. So we're going to revisit those soon. We're going to try and bring it all together. But Antarctica, very, very strange place, brings up a lot of strange questions and hypothetical arguments that possibly we live in a place that we're not being told what the reality is of the place we inhabit. So, questions to be answered. And I suppose when I do the next talks, there'll be even more questions. So stay with me and come back and enjoy the craziness, because I'm not telling you what the truth is. I'm asking questions that don't make any sense. The questions don't make sense, and neither do the answers. So join me. What's the worst that could possibly happen? So thank you for joining me today. I mean, absolutely insane subject, but it's going to get crazy when we start getting into the other subjects as well. So that's what you come here for, right? Listen to a lunatic walk along in the woods and talk to himself. That's what it's all about. So I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you one and all for being here. Really appreciate you being here. And come back and join me some other time. I think this is the kind of stuff I do. I hope you enjoyed it. So, as I say at the end of all my talks, go out into the world and do good and be good. You can change the world with the way that you think, the way that you talk, the way that you interact with people. And we all recognize we need to change the world. So let's do that. So go out there, look after yourself, look after each other, be good. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Ciao for now.